Hello again. Now, the COP26 Climate Summit underway currently in Glasgow in Scotland. South Africa is set to receive $8.5 billion in a deal to help end its reliance on coal. 80% of South Africa's power is generated by coal-fired plants, considered dirty energy providers. Even before Glasgow, the government had planned to shrink coal's contribution to the energy mix by 2030. Let's get the latest now from Glasgow. I'm joined now by our senior reporter, Siphamandla Goge. Siphamandla, good afternoon. And what's expected to happen today there at the COP26 summit?
Well, today we expect that a crucial meeting of ministers from across the world, those who deal with environmental affairs and energy, will take place, particularly on the issue of climate finance. That is one of the biggest talking points here in Glasgow, with COP26 underway. That is the issue that will make or break this conference. It's as simple as having rich countries who committed to raising about $100 billion annually up until 2020, honoring that commitment, which they have failed to honor. We hear now that the deadline has been pushed to 2023, but no one is accounting for what happened to the commitment that they made before. So today is the official start of the United Nations Climate Change Conference of the parties, known as COP26. The ministers will be discussing various issues. It's a very political gathering, and discussions are expected to be technical and also to be political. All countries here are protecting their interests. You are likely to have rich nations not honoring the commitments that they've made, as we have seen in the past. But let me bring you up to speed with the latest development here at COP26 is the arrival of former US President Barack Obama. Of course, he will be addressing the gathering today, looking at the impact of climate change, particularly on island nations, as well as the role that can be played by young people, the youth across the world, when it comes to fighting the impact of climate change. So Barack Obama is here, and so is John Kerry, the former State Secretary, representative of the USA, who is now the special envoy when it comes to climate change for President Joe Biden. So those two political heavyweights from the United States of America are here. There have been concerns and criticism that a high-level delegation of Chinese representatives is not here. Many people were questioning why the Chinese president is not here, the Russian president is not here, but of course they have sent their delegations, their ministers. So what is happening today is that as more and more delegates are streaming in here. Joe Komane will show you what is happening in the background. Delegates, observers, negotiators, they are all part of this COP26, which is fast running out of time.
Okay, and what's South Africa's position in this COP26?
Well, basically, the South African delegation, led by the Environmental Affairs Minister Barbara Creecy, wants to push the issue of mitigation, adaptation, but also climate finance. They say they need concrete commitments when it comes to those things and the impact of climate change, how to move forward. The South African delegation is saying, well, there have been commitments that have been made in the past, there have been talks and no action. And also recently, one of the latest developments last week was that 130 billion South African rands, of which is equivalent to that amount, that has been offered or pledged by the developed nations to South Africa's just transition process. Now, this is not a deal that has been struck. It's a commitment, a pledge, an offer that has been put on the table by rich nations. They are saying to South Africa, of course, we are offering you this amount of money for you to undertake your just transition. Now, the terms and conditions of that will take months to put together. South Africans or South African delegation will need to go back home, meet with National Treasury and all other stakeholders and work out the terms and conditions here, and also hear what the rich nations are saying in terms of terms and conditions. Then they can decide to accept the offer. But the Minister of Environmental Affairs from South Africa, Barbara Creecy, telling me that, well, if the terms and conditions are not in the interest of South Africa, they will not even bother to sign that deal. So for now, it's just a question of an offer that has been made for South Africa. And for COP26, South Africa is pushing hard to have commitments and also, in a way, some sort of action when it comes to dealing with issues of mitigation, adaptation, but most importantly, the issue of climate finance. So let's take a listen to Minister Barbara Creecy.
when some of the superpowers want to offer you money, the first question you have to ask is, why are they doing this? And of course the second question you would want to ask is this a loan? Can we afford it? We are already a country with serious debt. Eskom's balance sheet is weak. So I think that those are all very valid concerns. When we get back home, we are setting up a finance work stream. It will involve National Treasury, it will involve Eskom, the IDC, and we're also hoping to bring in significant financial experts who will be able to help us to interrogate what's on the table and to structure a potential future deal in a way that is in our domestic interests and in South African interests. So I think that the wait-and-see attitude that some sections of our community are adopting is entirely correct at this stage. And we would want to assure them that we're not going to do anything rash, and we're not going to rush into anything that would have unintended consequences for our economy or our society.
Environmental Minister there, Barbara Creecy. Now, finally, Siphamandla, when you have a COP summit, when you have a climate change summit, anywhere in the world, you get protests. We've seen even this one in Glasgow, there has been some protests. Are they still continuing? What's the latest? And what's the nub of these year's protests?
When you have climate change activists or climate justice activists coming out in thousands, here in their thousands, to protest in Glasgow, at the center of their protest really is their call to the world leaders to honor the commitments they've made in the past, particularly starting back as far as 2015 with the Paris Agreement. They are saying world leaders come here to have just what they call, according to the Swedish activist Greta, what she calls blah, 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 meaning no action, just talk. So those who are protesting, they are calling on world leaders to honor their commitments, to stop talking and act on the pledges and commitments that they have made. Remember, world leaders have made a commitment of raising about $100 billion every year to finance developing nations in their just transition processes. In other words, to say we are helping you with this amount of money so that you can catch up with the rest of the world. Now that has not happened, and deadlines are kept on being pushed forward and forward. So you have a situation whereby what has been dubbed as one of the biggest protests here in Glasgow for COP26 has taken place over the weekend. Protesters are adamant that they will be continuing throughout the rest of the week, because last week you had world leaders who were gathering here, they made political speeches, and they have since left. Now it's the real negotiators, it's the real ministers of environment and energy that are seized with the matter of ensuring that this conference or this climate change summit does not collapse like the one which was in Madrid 2 years ago, which failed to come up with solutions and commitments when it comes to climate finance. So they are only left with 4 days now to take concrete decisions and implementable commitments, and the protesters are saying, well, if they don't reach an agreement, they will continue to protest. I think, if I'm not mistaken, according to the organizers of these protests in Glasgow, they say initially they were expecting about 15,000 protesters, but they say that number has increased every day. So there have been daily protests, and protesters are adamant that they will continue for the rest of the week.
Thank you very much, Siphamandla Goge, for the latest update there, live from Glasgow in Scotland, the COP26 summit.